session for the City of Sierra Vista City Council for February 8th, 2022 to order. Normally we don't do a roll call here, but I just want to mention that the Mayor Pro Tem is out and will also miss on Thursday. Unfortunately, we learned that her sister passed away, so I would hope that you keep she and her family in your thoughts and prayers over the next week. So we'll go on to item number 2 now that we've been called to order, presentation discussion. And tonight we start, of course, with the February 10th, 2020 council meeting. And of course, call to order, we'll have the invocation, pledge, acceptance of the agenda. We'll have the city manager's report. Chuck, is there anything that you need to cover now? Would like to cover now?
There'll be a JPA board meeting for Ccom that morning, so I'll be able to update you on what's going on there, and then I should have your December sales tax numbers, which look pretty promising right now.
Okay. Well, I noticed I noticed we're still looking pretty good in the report, in your manager's report, written report. Next we'll move to the awards and presentations. We have an award to make, and the Waterwise Youth Poster Contest for both 2020 and 2021. And hopefully we can get that. That's always interesting, depending on how many kids show up and how many posters. And hopefully we'll be able to do that in an efficient manner. Next item is public hearings. Item number 2 is a possible liquor license. Jill, do you want to brief us on that, please?
Absolutely. Mayor Mueller, members of council, the first public hearing item is for a transfer of the liquor license that's currently at the Bashas', owned by Bashas' and operated over at the Food City. They have recently sold some of their stores, and so there's a new company that's taking that over. It's Rayleigh's Arizona. They're going to still be operating as Food City. The notice of the public hearing was posted on the facility the required 20-plus days. No comments have been received from the public. A background check of the applicant, Mr. Basha, was done by the police department, and there's no objection to this moving forward. And if approved Thursday night, it'll be returned to the state for final action.
Any questions for Mrs. Adams on this item? Discussion? Seeing none, we'll go on to item number 3. And again, it's a liquor license. Mrs. Adams?
Mayor Mueller, members of council, after a long time coming, this license was formerly the King's Court liquor license that the city received when Dr. McCormick donated that facility to the city. We sold it to Mr. Barta several years ago, and he has finally found a location and is doing construction and remodeling to open a bar called Punchy's Tavern. The notice of the public hearing was posted on the facility, and we have received no comments pro or con. Background check was done, and there is no objection from the police department on this moving forward. And if approved Thursday night, we will send it up to Phoenix for final action.
Thank you, Mrs. Adams. Any questions for Mrs. Adams or comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to under new business. Is the possible action of the city council meeting minutes for approval of the city council meeting minutes for 13 January. So is there any additions, deletions, corrections, comments on that item? Okay. Of course, we close the meeting with the call to the public and comments and requests of the council, and then adjourn. So anything else we need to cover in the work session?
None.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to item B, which is general plan update, and I think Jeff's going to take this. I just make some comments first, Jeff, and I hope I don't steal any of your thunder.
By all means.
And I'm doing this as the old guy sitting up here, literally and figuratively. Janet Napolitano was the governor when the legislature required all cities to have a general plan, and they actually went down and specified which elements of the general plan certain size cities would have. And of course, we could have more than what was required by the state as well. And we opted to add a couple at that time. But the city of Sierra Vista has had a general plan since 1968. So that's pretty good for a town that was founded in 56. And it wasn't like in many organizations I've been, you have a good general plan that sits up and collects dust on the shelf. We kind of haven't done that here at the city of Sierra Vista. It's a plan that has to be updated every 10 years. And the way it kind of works is the general plan is the voted on plan from the public, and it's basically general goals of where we want to go in the future. And then we come up with our 2-year, which is really a specific plan, our 2-year funding plan, where the council gets together and say, what can we afford to do to make our community better that's in the general plan? And that's how we come up with our 2-year plan that we work on a regular basis. And I guess we're going to be due for an update here for the halfway mark, either next work session or the work session after that, so we know where we stand and if we need to make any midterm adjustments. And obviously, the annual budget feeds all that. So that's kind of how it works. That's just a general overview of how it's all integrated. But it's absolutely critical that we understand what's in the current general plan, and how far we got to go before we get the next general plan. So with that, I'll leave it to you, Jeff.
That was a fantastic introduction, Mr. Mayor. In fact, you cut down my presentation by about half. So
Good.
Thank you.
That's a good
Of course, I
thing.
didn't string it out.
That's right. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I am going to give an update on the general plan. I'm going to be answering 3 questions. One would be the what. The what, of course, is what is a general plan? Secondarily is the why. Why are we updating the general plan? And then finally, the how. How is this going to be updated moving into the future? So with that, I did find a couple of definitions of general plan from other communities. I thought these were pretty good. I read them to you really quickly. So the general plan is an expression of community visions, aspirations, values, and goals. It is a short and long-term decision-making guide to achieve the vision, and it fulfills state legal requirements. And then I have another definition here. This is really more along the lines of general plan amendments. As you know, this is a living document, and the visions of the community often change in 10 years. And so this gives people the ability to revise their visions, and there is a process in place to provide amendments for those changes. So a general plan is a broad, flexible document that changes as community needs, conditions, and directions change. It can be revised through city-initiated amendments, citizen property owner requests, or through referenda. Ultimately, the decision to amend is in the hands of the city council. So with that, I want to go over some state statutes that would apply to the general plan and the reasons why we need to update the way we are. So I'll just kind of read these really quickly from state statutes. It says each planning agency shall prepare, and the governing body of each municipality shall adopt a comprehensive long-range general plan for the development of the municipality. It goes on to say that a general plan with any amendments is effective for up to 10 years from the date the plan was initially adopted and ratified, as Mr. Mayor had said during his preface there. On or before the 10th anniversary of the plan's most recent adoption, the governing body of the municipality shall either readopt the existing plan for an additional term of up to 10 years, or shall adopt a new general plan as provided by this article. And staff's direction will be at this point is to adopt a new general plan.
That's a recommendation.
That's a recommendation.
Yeah, staff doesn't give direction.
That is correct.
There you go.
Thank you. The governing body of any city or town having a population of 10,000 or more persons shall submit each new general plan adopted to the voters for ratification. And as Mr. Mayor had said, this came into effect, I believe, in 2000, where the general plan has to be ratified by the voters. Previous to this, it was simply just an approval or adoption by the city council. This did amend that change in 2000. Let's take a look at the state mandated elements required per state law. Now, the general plan shall consist of community goals and development policies and include the following elements: land use, circulation, open space, growth, environmental planning, cost of development, and water resources. So these are the goals and policies that are required in every general plan in every jurisdiction in Arizona. Now, for cities with a population under 50,000, the general plan may include these following elements: conservation, recreation, public service and facilities, public buildings, housing, redevelopment, safety, bicycling, energy element, neighborhood preservation, and of course any other elements that the community deems necessary. And as the mayor has stated, the current general plan, Vista 2030, does include all of these elements in their general plans. Even though they are optional, we have decided since 2000 to include all of these elements in our plans. And the new general plan will also include all of these elements. So real quickly, in terms of the approval dates previously, on June 26, 2014, the City Council adopted Vista 2030, replacing the previously approved general plan called Vista 2020. On November 4th, 2014, the citizens of Sierra Vista did ratify Vista 2030. I believe it was like a 65-35 vote, if I remember correctly. The next general plan then needs to be ratified in November of 2024. So at this point, the city staff has conducted an evaluation and appraisal report, which basically is an analysis of all the goals and policies in the current general plan. So to give you a quick definition of environmental appraisal report, it is a review of the adopted general plan to determine how well the city is meeting the elements, goals, and objectives as set forth in the general plan, including what issues need to be addressed to meet expectations and what tools could be used to address the issues raised in the community. Now, staff analyzed each element in the general plan and provided an evaluation of each strategy and goal. This evaluation was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission at various work sessions in 2020 and 2021. And the City Council has been provided with the staff's written background information of each plan, elements, strategies, and goals. And I apologize for the lengthy written summaries of each of these elements, but I think it's a good overview of the accomplishments the city has accomplished in the last 8 years. So with that, I want to kind of get into the details of some of the trends, the analysis in the current general plan. I'm going to start off with growth and land use, and I basically have, these are basically, I organize these by themes rather than by elements. I figured we can do, there's a better comprehensive analysis if you divide these into themes rather than elements, because you can certainly have 3 or 4 different elements into one theme, so you get a better comprehension.
And Jeff, before you get started, I would highly recommend to the council that you go into the handwritten lengthy items here, because it really does give a good analysis of what's happened in the 10 years and how far we've progressed. And I'm sure you're not going to be able to do all that today.
Yeah, this is simply just the highlights, some of the major achievements that have occurred in the last 8 years since 2015. So first I want to talk about some of the growth and land use trends that we've seen over the last 8 years. When we look at the residential land here in the city currently, there's 5,000 acres of developed residential land. 23,000 acres is undeveloped, and this is because there's large chunks of vacant land, such as the state land and the tribute, which have remained vacant. We have 378 undeveloped residential parcels. Again, the number is so low because of the large vacant lands from the state and the tribute. We have 13,854 developed residential parcels. Since 2015, there have been 445 new single-family residential homes constructed in the city. Looking at commercial, we have 670 acres of developed commercial land, 760 acres of undeveloped commercial properties, 378 undeveloped commercial parcels, and then 492 developed commercial parcels. And again, since 2015, there's been 15 new commercial properties or developments that have been constructed. Looking at industrial, we have 110 acres that have currently been developed. We have 283 acres of undeveloped industrial land. This does include the 200 acres on Fort Huachuca, which currently we're not able to develop at this time. We have 48 undeveloped industrial parcels total in the community. We have 32 developed industrial parcels, and there's been 1 new industrial parcel constructed since 2015. 2015. So the next theme I want to talk about is the redevelopment and neighborhood enhancement and look at some of the achievements we've accomplished in the last 8 years. So 2017, we've had the adoption of the West Sierra Vista Redevelopment Area Partnership Program. Of course, this provides grant opportunities for buildings and site improvements on the West End. 2015 to 2021, we've had a number of infrastructure upgrades and improvements, such as walkability, connectivity, safety, drainage improvements, and landscaping. 2020, we've had updates to the Urban Infill Incentive District policy, which provides fee and development reduction and waivers for developments on the West End. And now let's go to affordable housing, some of the achievements here. We have 8 affordable housing developments currently in the community, 3 more potential developments on the way. Development fees are waived for affordable housing projects. Site plan review and processing fees are reduced by 50%. Developments within infill incentive districts can require a waiver or reduction in fees, building plan and permit, which meet certain criteria. So again, these are all incentives to help with affordable housing here in the community. Code amendments allowing apartments with general commercial zoning districts, allows for hotels and motels now to able to convert to apartments in commercial zoning districts. And actually, this is a trend that we're seeing more and more. There's probably at least 2 or 3 that we've been reviewing, which are converting from hotels to apartments in the community. Code amendments allowing for accessory dwelling units in single-family residential zoning districts when provided certain standards are met. Again, this is another form of affordable housing. And then we've got the Emergency Home Repair and Disabilities Modification Program, which provides funding to make repairs to substandard housing and accessibility modifications for disabled homeowners. Continuing on with some of the achievements in affordable housing, the city supports organizations such as the Good Neighbor Alliance through the Cdbg program to help with site and building improvements. The city supports the Cochise Cause residential construction program by waiving the sewer connection fees. And of course, every April, the council does recognize the National Fair Housing Month every April. So now let's turn to the transportation connections and enhancements and some of these achievements. So we had the Safe Bicycle Pedestrian Routes Plan, which prioritizes multimodal projects. This was approved in 2011. This was prior to 2015. But I mention this because there's been so many projects that have been accomplished and completed since 2015, which all stem from this original Safe Bicycle Pedestrian Routes Plan. These projects have included in the Metropolitan Planning Organization Long Range Transportation Plan as well. Connectivity enhancement projects. Multi-use paths on the west side of State Route 92 from Foothills Drive to Avenida Cochise. Multi-use paths on east side of Buffalo Soldier Trail from Golf Links Road to 5 Boulevard. The city has received funding, FTA funding for these 2 connectivity projects. And of course, the West 5 Boulevard, North Garden Avenue project is also a form of multimodal project, as there will be abilities for bicycling, walking, and the larger pedestrian connections, again, allow for that multimodal transportation. Current subdivisions that have provided multi-use pathways since 2015 that connect to pedestrian ways and washes include Summit Heights, Kenyatta Vista, The Retreat, and The Holiday. The Tribute Specific Plan also proposes similar multi-use path connectivity. In 2019, several additional bus stops were added to the bus routes to better serve the community. And finally, the Short Range Transportation Plan was adopted in August of 2021. Let's quickly go through urban design, some of the accomplishments here since 2015. The electronic message signs, outdoor lighting codes were approved in 2015. Bicycle parking code amendment in 2017, which required bicycle racks for newly constructed commercial buildings. Architectural design standards were approved by council in 2019. Now, environmental and sustainability, some of these quick achievements. City provides funds to the WaterWise program, which offers water conservation services. And apparently we also have youth poster contests as well for WaterWise, so it's very timely. We also approved water harvesting standards, continue to enforce water conservation measures. I do have, I believe, a graph in that background information that's provided in the reading a reading room, which indicates the water usage reduction since 2000, which has been reduced from 7,633 acre feet to 6,814 acre feet in 2020. So even though the city has grown, the amount of water that's being used has actually been reduced in 20 years. And then, of course, the city implements the toilet rebate program. The city is a founding member of the Cochise Conservation and Recharge Network, which implements and designs projects designed to increase groundwater recharge and protect groundwater resources. And of course, our wash and drainage maintenance policy was recently amended to include language about wildlife habitat protection. The Schneider Electric Project replaced light bulbs at all city facilities, buildings, parks, and fields to efficient LED bulbs. Soccer fields were constructed or replaced with artificial turf, which again saved both energy and water at the city facilities and parks and buildings. We also have an Adopt an Area program, which is a stewardship program where the public can maintain and clean washes, streets, parks, and even events. And then let's look at the achievements for parks, facilities, and services. Parkland levels of service standards is 10 acres of parkland per 1,000 residents, which totals 440 acres. Now, the acquisition of new parkland, the Rothery Center, the Roadrunner Park, and eventually the Tribute Parks, the city will be able to meet this standard. New Parks Master Plan was approved on August 12th, 2021. This plan addresses park improvements, amenities, and programs, and this will be included as a new appendix to the general plan. Moving on to the facilities, the EMS substation was approved in 2021, which provides quicker response times for emergency service vehicles.
May I add something here, Jeff?
Sure.
The new EMS station where it's going to be actually prevents us from having to move Station 2 to another location to survive, to provide services for the Tribute and the areas on the southeast side of town once they're built out. We will probably need a fire station down there, but having not to close and rebuild is cheaper. So it'll save money in the long run.
Yes, sir.
Am I about on line there, Chuck? Because I didn't cover that. I didn't ask you about that.
Yeah, the tribute plan will include, provisions for
proper
another
fire
station.
Yeah.
And actually, with the way we're doing business now, Station 2 could probably be easily converted into another EMS station.
Ambulance station.
At
Okay.
that time.
So we don't lose the investment.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. The Southeast Arizona Communications Facility, Ccom, started in 2017 and is a regional hub for 911 dispatching and emergency services coordination. Public Library has also had additional audio books and online services, which has increased their ability to serve more citizens, especially during the pandemic. So those are kind of the goals. Those are the achievements that the city has accomplished over the last 8 years. Again, these are all based on the goals and strategies from Vista 2030. So at this point, what I want to do is look at how we're going to develop the new general plan moving forward. I first want to take a look at the organization and the format of the new general plan. I first want to talk about vision. So visioning, of course, is a critical step in articulating the shared values of Sierra Vista residents, business owners, and community leaders. And of course, I have a couple of examples here of what a vision might mean. Outstanding livability, exceptional experience are a couple of examples of a vision, a community vision. Values. So community values, of course, will be at the forefront of the decision-making and implementing the city's vision, community aspirations, and goals found in the general plan. And I have some examples here. Collaborate and engage. Revitalize responsibly are the values that certainly a community can strive to accomplish. Themes. So categories, these are categories that have similar characteristics, okay? And so the general plan, the idea is that it's going to be organized into themes as opposed to being organized by elements like it currently is. Now, several elements can apply to a specific theme. For example, sustainability and environmental planning can include elements of open space, environmental planning, conservation, and water resources. So what are the advantages of organizing into themes? Well, you can better address the values of the community. You can reduce the duplication of information. And by the way, there is a lot of duplication in the current general plan.
Yep.
And I think by organizing it in this format, you'll have a lot less duplication moving forward.
So basically what you're talking about is we're still going to have the elements, whatever that is required by law, but you can organize them in groups so that we don't have to repeat things 3 and 4 times under each category.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. I think it's more effective, and many other communities have used that format as well, so I think we're going to move that direction. And then finally, of course, the advantage of the theme is that it requires measured and objective strategies and goals. So at this point, let's look at some of the major themes and issues that we're going to be looking at placing in the new general plan. Again, starting with themes, growth and land use. We're going to monitor and find opportunities to reduce building vacancy rates. The vacancy rates have been going down in the past 6 months. The pandemic, did hit. There were a lot of vacancies during the pandemic, but they have actually gotten better in the last 6 months.
And there's major focus on commercial versus residential, or both?
Commercial.
Commercial, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Ensure future development does not compromise or negatively affect the missions on Fort Huachuca or adjacent jurisdictions. As you may or may not know, the city and the Fort Huachuca are in the process of completing a joint resource utilization study. And that, of course, is to ensure that the goals and strategies of Fort Huachuca and the goals and strategies of the city do not conflict with one another and certainly complement one another moving forward. And so we're in the process now of completing that study. Coordinate new developments with Fort Huachuca and other applicable government agencies. Again, we do that now. We want to ensure that any development in the city does not in any way compromise the missions on Fort Huachuca. And typically what we will do is we'll ask them to provide us comments about a particular development, and if they have no additional comments, then we move forward with that project and that development. We will continue to pursue annexations in the proactive annexation area, and we're in the process of doing that even as we speak. Pursue growth opportunities in the industrial sector, and then infill development of the state trust land located within the city. There's still a lot of state trust land. Cañada Vista is subdivisions is one little section of that entire master plan from the state land. It goes all the way from Fry Boulevard, I think right now, used to be Service to Flowers, used to be right next to the state land. It goes all the way down through Busby and all the way down to almost Golf Links Drive. And this is all the area is vacant, and it's ripe for infill development at some point down the road.
As well as the area just south of us is state trust land. We have almost 2 full sections within the city of state trust land in various places.
That's right.
The challenge with the state trust land, they can't get rid of it unless it's the best and highest use to gather the funds to the education system in the state.
Right.
And they're very particular, and they have to follow a bid process where the land goes to the highest bidder. So most developers don't want to deal with it, and that's a challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge. It is. Understandable. You bring up a good point also, Mr. Mayor, in that a lot of this property has been master planned by the state, and there's already existing zoning on the property. Of course, our zoning and our development and our zoning map reflects the zoning on the master plan. And so when a developer comes in, they have to develop it per the zoning that's on the master plan and in our development code. So that can pose a challenge as well, especially if the developer doesn't think it's the highest and best use.
There you go.
So. Okay, redevelopment and neighborhood enhancement. We're going to continue with public safety and neighborhood enforcement in some of these areas. Again, continue with the upgrades and infrastructure improvements. Compatibility. Look at the character, the definition, the design standards, sense of place. We're trying to do that now with the West End as we see all the improvements going on West End of Fry Boulevard. Infill, reuse, repurpose some of these vacant buildings. Continue policies that encourage investment and development. Particularly in the West End, we have the infill incentive district policy with the West End Service to Partnership Program. Affordable housing. We need to get a mix of more affordable housing in this community. We have, I'd say, I mentioned 8 developments earlier. I'd say 7 of those are apartments, and we do have the housing project off of Denman Avenue, but we need to have a greater mix of affordable housing in this community. Expand programs to repair and rehabilitate existing affordable housing stocks, such as the Emergency Home Repair Program. Increase communication with Cochise County Housing Authority and Arizona Attorney General's Office. And what we've noticed in the past couple of years is a lot of individuals have been placed in substandard housing, and we get involved because it's a blight issue in terms of the building, and we follow up with abatement if necessary. But there's people living in these substandard homes, so we're trying to figure out a way to prevent this from happening. On the front end rather than the back end, be more proactive with this. And so if there's a way we can work more with the Cochise County Housing Authority or even the Attorney General's Office to prevent this from happening in the future, that would definitely be a benefit to the community. So that's why this issue is on here. Neighborhood enforcement and abatements, again, we'll continue to do that as necessary. Synergy and coordination between continuum of care organizations. Again, continue to partnership and work together with all these organizations in the community to try to work with affordable housing in the county. Update the housing and needs assessment plan to reflect current trends. And I think what we're going to end up doing is hiring a consultant to provide us a new housing needs assessment plan, which will then ultimately be an appendix to the general plan moving forward. I believe the last time we had Matt, was it 2008? 2007 was the last time we had it.
That's about right.
Yeah, housing needs assessment, so it's time for another one. Transportation connections and enhancements. Want to be able to update access management. Information to be provided by a consultant and included as an appendix. And this is something that the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff have been discussing for a couple of years, is to update our access management plan. There's been some concerns about access to commercial businesses, and so what we decided to do is to have a consultant take a look at access management standards, and we'll take a look at that and maybe integrate that into our development code for future development.
So we're talking access to particular business or public access to businesses? Are we talking also access to transit and exactly what are we?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. Certainly, it started off as a discussion about commercial developments, but
Okay.
of course, it morphed into other areas as well. So, like I said, we're going to be hiring a consultant to take a look at these needs and come back to us. It will require a development code amendment because we'll be amending our current access management plan. But I think it'll be better once it's updated, in terms of providing appropriate connections to commercial facilities.
Yeah, safe, appropriate, ADA
Correct.
capable.
That's
all
right.
That, all that.
That's
Okay,
right.
I got you.
Yep. Integrate the data from the updated traffic circulation plan into the land use maps. Again, as you remember, the traffic circulation plan was updated in 2019. That data has to be placed into our new updated general plan. Update roadway construction standards to reflect in land use maps. Again, this is something else, similar to what we were talking about with access management. Now we're talking about roadway construction standards. For example, roadway widths, okay, the width of lanes, width of right-of-ways. That's all going to be taken a look at in the next couple of years as well. So that information will also be integrated into our general plan, as well as a development code change as well. And then finally include the updated short-range transit plan as an appendix to the general plan. Okay, so we want to include the MPO, long-range transportation plan, as an appendix. Continue to apply for connectivity grants as prioritized by the Safe Bicycle Pedestrian Routes Plan. And ensure that transit services and facilities can accommodate citizens with differing abilities. Urban design. A couple of goals that the staff is recommending is that gateway overlays or standards to provide for a higher level of building and set aesthetics or properties located along major roadways entering the city. And we've seen this in a lot of other communities, specifically on major arterial roadways, where there might be a higher level of architectural design or roadway enhancement, additional landscaping. And so that's something the city will be looking at moving forward in both the general plan and the development code. Consider distinctive architectural design for the West End. Again, this is something that's been discussed for the past couple of years as well.
Now, when we talk about architectural design, we're talking more than just having the fancy light poles and the planters, except on the public side. We're also talking about, as new businesses come in, to be a little more liberal or set a set of standards so that things look, I don't want, cohesive, not similar, but cohesive, so that you know in an area.
That's exactly it.
And that's going to engender some future discussion, because what I like, she may not like, or he may not like, or she may like to, and to get a cohesive thing from the council is going to be a chore, but getting the businesses who are actually spending the money to go along with it is going to be another challenge. So
Yeah.
I'm a little unsettled about that one, just so you know.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that for sure. And I know this is something the West End Commission has been pushing recently. So again, you're right. It could be a challenge, and it may not go anywhere, but at least it'll be potentially in our general plan for consideration.
We need to consider it. I agree.
Yeah. Environmental and sustainability. Again, continue to find ways to save energy and water on all city facilities and buildings. Again, referencing the Snyder Electric project. Expand water conservation standards for new developments. And again, continue the toilet rebate program. Continue to support WaterWise. Continue partnership with the Cochise Conservation Recharge Network, and expand our stewardship programs like Adopt an Area program.
One of the things, just to throw out for thought on I lost my spot here. Hang on. On the electrical, we might consider how do we attract in the hotels and in the main shopping areas, how do we attract a company, if we don't do it ourselves, that will set up electric power recharging stations for vehicles? Because if we're going to all this electrical vehicle stuff,
Right.
we have people visiting the community on business or whatever for an event in the park. They need a place to plug in overnight, so we need to look at that long term and have a plan so we don't have just those things popping up everywhere.
I think that's a great idea, Mr. Mayor, and I made comment of that we can certainly include something like that in our general plan. Okay, so those are the major goals and the policies that the city staff has certainly recognized at this point, and there will be more. And again, we still have to have a public outreach component to this general plan. Bang the table and the virtual meetings will be the primary form of outreach. There will be limited in-person meetings or attendance at public events, but there will be a few in-meeting events, certainly necessary, as some people don't have access to computers and whatnot. So, but primarily, most of the information, public outreach will be through virtual means.
And I would hope that the pandemic is well gone by 2023, or
That's the X
by the end of
factor.
this
But
year.
yes.
so we may want to plan for some additional in-person meetings depending on the situation. But it's taken people a while to get back to what used to be normal. So this may be the best way to go.
Yeah. I agree. So I'm going to end talking about the schedule and the timeline. I think I might work backwards here. It might probably be the best thing to do. So November 5th, 2024 is Election Day. And so that is the day that the general plan has to be on the ballot to be ratified by the voters. According to the state law, the council approval has to be 120 days prior to the ratification of the public, which is why we have the date set for July 2nd, 2024. I'm sorry, June 27th, 2024 is the date of the council approval. It requires a 2/3 vote, and as I said, approval needs to be 120 days prior to ratification. We require 2 public hearings for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So the first one I have scheduled for June 3rd, 2024. The first one I have scheduled for May 28th, 2024. And again, this first one has to be off-site somewhere in the community. March 7th, 2024 is the date that the draft plan needs to be distributed. The way the state law reads that 60 days before the first public hearing notification is the date that draft plan has to be distributed. So that's why March 7th is an important date. That's the date that we have to have basically that draft plan ready to go and out for review. So we essentially have 2 years and 3 weeks to complete this plan. We're in the process now of doing the data collection, analysis, and public input and document writing. And as I said, March 7th is that important date that we have everything ready to go by then for the public hearings. And that does conclude my report, Mr. Mayor. So
I do have a couple of comments, but I'm going to let everybody else go because I've already shot my mouth off enough. Anybody else have any comments? I know this is the first look.
The comments I had, you hit it at the last slide. Just where's the public feedback in all this, and you kind of finished with that, so that's important to me. Obviously, we start talking about consultants and things like that. That's all great, but obviously, we want to know what are they supposed to provide, right? What's it going to cost, and also how's the public feedback going to feed into that stuff?
right.
That's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councilman Rodriguez. The price for the consultants, et cetera, what they're going to provide us and all that information. But going through your briefing, I have to say, when you think to yourself, you're walking and someone says, oh, what's Sierra Vista look like now, et cetera, you don't realize how much has changed. But then you see it on paper and you start going through it, and I mean, from 2015, Sierra Vista is a different city. And it's growing even better and even more. So it's one, great to be a part of. 2, great to watch. And I have to say, for Chuck, you and your staff, y'all do amazing work, and keep it up. It's really nice. So that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody else?
Look forward to the rest of the process.
Sir?
Mary, we were talking about, you were mentioning, Jeff, earlier about substandard housing. Are these typically all rentals, or?
Yes, that's correct. They
Okay.
typically are rentals.
Well, I don't know about how we work with apartment owners, but perhaps inspection prior to the new rental. I mean, if people are renting places that are substandard, I think it's our responsibility to make sure that these apartments or places are not substandard. I think that's human dignity, in my estimation.
I think housing is one area where the city has not been directly involved as we probably could be. The state of Arizona, it's pretty much the state is responsible for that aspect. Now, obviously, we can assist. We knew a number of years ago there were shortages of housing, period, and we were able to get attract some folks to put in housing that is not substandard. Eliminating a lot of the pre-1976 trailers, got rid of a lot of substandard housing. So there are things we have done in the past, but that's something that if we put it in the general plan, we're going to have to focus on it in the future and address those things. We don't control housing. We don't have a housing agency like a big city would be, and I'm not even sure there's legislation that would allow us to do that. But we need to delve into all that.
Mr. Mayor.
And see how we can improve it. Chuck?
We had that young gentleman that made
Yeah, I
a
know.
short presentation to us, and it opened some eyes.
Oh,
and I've taken.
there's definitely a need. There's no argument about that.
Okay.
Chuck?
Well, just for some context, and let me break in here real
ahead.
quick. the 2007 study that was done really focused on more the availability of affordable housing. And in this particular go-around and talking with Matt, what we want to focus on is not only availability of affordable housing, that we're seeing, going on in certain parts of town and with the redevelopment of some of the trailer areas and that kind of thing, but the component of substandard housing is something I think we need to address as well within that study. So, and then, giving you guys then some options maybe for looking at how we can address that in terms of code enforcement and other things in the future. So, so we're going to add that component to the next study.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's necessary.
Will, did you have something?
I was just, for repairs and stuff, I know the contractors or the maintenance people for the different apartment complexes, they're coming to get their inspections and stuff like that. For the maintenance side of it, I don't know, I don't think they're doing anything for the beginning, but it might be a good idea to look at, maybe, and I agree with
But
what you
again, we
said.
need to find out, we need to define the problem first, and that's exactly what Chuck was saying. Is we define the problem, and then we can develop appropriate solutions. So, but I don't think anybody's gonna agree that we don't have an issue there. Disagree, we don't have an issue. Okay. Any other questions for Jeff?
No.
Mr. Pregler, thank you very much for your good briefing. Again, I would encourage everybody on the council to read the more detailed copies you got via email on the land use. There's a lot of good things in there. And I've got some additional questions for Mr. Pregler on those after I read them. I know you're gonna have, and please, if you need historical context, come see me, and we can talk about how we got to where we got to on this, because I've been through it twice now. With that, a lot of good work, and we thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Looking forward to getting this done. All right, next we got, I believe it's the city manager's report, Mr. Patuchik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the
Council executive report, excuse me.
Yep, your executive report. So much of what we do is process, and we just went through one of those things, the general plan, which is something we have to do every 10 years. Of course, with the start of the new year, we're now entering the budget process. So your next work session will be the mid-year budget review, which will also effectively be the kickoff of your next fiscal year's budget process. So Ms. Yarborough and Ms. Dalala have put together their budget plan for the year, and she will be emailing that to the council so you can see the dates of the work sessions and how we plan to accomplish this during the year. So get ready. There'll be a number of sessions regarding the budget over the next few months then. And then the other process that some of you are familiar with and some of you aren't is the annual Cdbg process, and Matt will be addressing that here at a future council work session very soon as well. So a couple of processes that we'll be going through. Other than that, in the report, there's some excellent statistics, and of course, many projects are already underway, and I'll be reporting Thursday on some of the ones that are that have already had bid openings and others that are currently out to bid. So you're going to see a lot of activity still around town the rest of this fiscal year and beyond. So, and of course, hopefully then in the next year's budget, which I anticipate will be a very good budget for us next year. So staff is here, and we're happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Who wants to go first on the executive report with questions?
I have a comment. I always love these executive reports. It has so much great information and breaks things down really nice. I always like that. I did really like seeing the Better Bucks breakdown, the report in there. That was really neat to kind of see, since it started at the end of last year, kind of how that's going. So it was nice to kind of see that breakdown. So I really appreciated that it needs being utilized more.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate the council's support of that program, and it's taken off probably better than we've even hoped so far. So it's turned out to be a very good program.
It was
I agree.
really wonderful to read the impact it's having on our community, and with the stores and the shoplifting going down. There's a chart in here somewhere, but I don't know if theft going up is just shoplifting went like that, and it looks like Better Bucks might have to do with that, which is wonderful. But I don't know why theft would go up. I guess is theft? This might sound stupid. Is theft strictly like when someone's being robbed, like a personal property, or not?
Right, so
Commercial.
the classifications on any of that stuff, so shoplifting is obviously from a store. Theft is typically somebody stealing something from an individual. A burglary would be breaking into somebody's home and stealing something. A vehicle burglary would be breaking into a car and stealing something. So this is probably, a lot of these are, and I know a lot of these are, individuals have stuff missing from their homes. They believe they know who might have taken it. It's somebody that had legal access to their place, those type of stuff. Things stolen out of front yards, those kind of things would be the stuff that would be classified under theft, and not shoplifting or one of the others. A robbery would be taking something off a person. A robbery would be what people refer to as a mugging. That's what a robbery is typically, when you use force to remove property from a person while they have it. So.
Oh, I had all that confused. Okay, well, thank you.
You bet.
But yeah, I was really happy to see that Better Bucks was being so successful with shoplifting.
Yeah, Councilmember Humphrey, I don't think we have enough data to say that Better Bucks resulted in the decreases that you're referring to.
Oh, well,
Of course,
your
we would
report
like to
says that.
We would like to say that we hope it does.
The report
but-
is one store in particular has
Okay.
stated that, because they take the Better Bucks. The overall shoplifting dropped considerably during COVID.
Yes.
Because of basically they had mask mandates, they had people waiting at doors, you had people coming in and out. So I still think we're seeing the effects, the shoplifting reduction as a result of the COVID restrictions that were placed at stores. The one anecdote was one particular store that takes the Better Bucks that has seen the reduction in shopliftings, and they relayed that to Corporal Borgstad.
I think that's great. And since I'm talking, I'll just go to.
Your turn.
Okay. I've also wanted to say, speaking of the pandemic, I wanted to say how grateful I am to see it for all of our first responders, like working through. I know it's been really extra crazy with the virus being so widespread, but it's finally on a decline and that's good news. But I know it just meant a lot more for all of our first responders, so I'm very grateful to them. And I wanted to say there was a blurb about the work that the West End Commission's doing on planning the what are we calling it?
It's a West End celebration.
West
It's
End
actually,
celebration.
city-led with support by the West End Commission.
Yes, so the city and the West End. I sat in on a couple of meetings, and I love hearing how it's coming together, and it's going to be such a I think it's going to be an amazing event. And I don't know if they're calling it Rediscover the West End. I know there were some ideas thrown around.
It's the West End Fair, the
Yes.
next generation.
Right.
And it's gonna be later in the day, and it's just I'm very excited about that, to see how it's shaping out. And I was we walked to the ice cream store, because that's what we do, and someone used the ice salt for the first time, and I got way too excited, and I don't know if I worried this guy or not, but he parked on the street, and then his two little kids, who are smaller than my kids, and my kids are short, they were able to just run from the car to the park, to the ice cream shop, and they didn't have to worry about any cars, because it was car, sidewalk, shop. There was no, don't run into the parking lot, It was awesome to see them excited and be able to do that, and see someone utilize the on-street parking already was awesome. And it's looking beautiful out there. And I had a bunch of notes to myself. I was happy to see the demo and removal and cleanup of the unsafe structures. and I know they were probably being used for that, what we were just talking about with the housing that's not up to standard. They could have been, there's properties like that in on the West End particularly. And I saw Mike Norman's name, that he's coming back to work with you guys for a little bit. That's cool. And I wanted to say congratulations to all the retirees at the police department. And
We're not all that happy about that.
it is, yeah, that's true. You know, it's not good when you recognize all the faces. You're like, oh, we're losing some important people. But I'm happy for them. And I had a question for. This is just not. It's not super important. It's just my own curiosity. There was under marketing and communications, our new hire is gathering B-roll, and I was just. I didn't know what that was.
Okay.
And what he was doing.
Councilmember Humphrey, members of council, sorry for using jargon. It's just some extra video footage that we can use to plug in where we need it. It's referred to as B-roll.
B-roll.
A-roll is what's
It
used,
sounded-
and B-roll is what's left.
B-roll's the filler.
Is there
You
A-roll?
add that to everything else. Background and whatever else.
So when he's gathering it, is he just like going around the city and
Yeah,
existing?
he's using, we want to promote things like festivals and events and activities, and we're working with the police department, so he'll take quite a bit of video footage of the police department officers talking about how awesome it is to work there, and then we'll take bits and pieces out to use for this particular project, but we'll save all the pieces that we're not going to use. That's considered the B-roll, so when we have another project, we've already got it ready to go.
Oh, cool. Okay. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks.
Scraps.
It's the scraps. Okay.
Chuck, you want to make a comment?
Well, I just wanted to point out with regards to Ms. Humphrey's questions, about some of the police and fire statistics, and Victoria and I were talking about this a little earlier today. Anecdotally, we're seeing some growth in the community. We're seeing new construction, and hopefully, we're now seeing we've reversed the trend, and we're now seeing some population growth here, which we need to have. But disproportionately, the number of calls in the police and fire department have gone up fairly dramatically, certainly more than our growth rate has. And, I'm going to ask the chiefs to kind of do a little deeper dive into those numbers so we can get a better determination as to, what that is. Maybe it's COVID and or effects of that are causing some of these trends. But I think we need to take a little deeper look at the numbers so we can address those either with manning or facilities or training and that kind of thing going forward, because there just seems to be a disparity between the growth in those areas and the other growth we're seeing in the community.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't have anything else.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez.
Covered pretty much everything else. A little bit, just want to touch on a few things. I do like the crime rate statistics. A lot of people asked about that. We get a lot of comments recently. Has there been an uprise in murders in the city, things like that? So the crime rates kind of, once they're broken down a little bit better, shows the actual facts and the actual if there is a trend or not. So I really appreciate things like that. The response times as well kind of goes along with what Chuck said. Call volumes out there, along with the DCF's grant. So people ask questions a lot about, how do these coincide? How we building a new station, things like that. So it's good that the DCF's grant info is in there again. The West End stuff is good. We've got a few comments about the West End stuff. Obviously, every day everybody's either happy or mad about that stuff. But just little things like when it comes to we did a traffic study already once. Will another one be done if needed, or if we see a problem, how do we address that, right? So if we notice that there's a lot of accidents, we weren't going to put a stop sign here, but now we're showing a lot of congestion here that we weren't expecting, because of the way maybe traffic might be flowing that we weren't expecting based on a study that we did 2 years ago.
Well, that's a timely question, Councilmember Rodriguez, because the mayor and I were talking about that here just a little bit earlier today. And obviously the intent of the West Fry project is to narrow the road and slow down the speeds as well. So when you have slower speeds, that kind of determined that we didn't really need to have, some the stoplights, particularly the one, at Garden, and that caused the determination to take that out. And obviously, we did traffic studies and all that before we embarked on this process. So it would be good to follow up after the project is finished to see just how much traffic is being generated, how fast they're going, and that kind of thing. So we'll certainly engage in that. But I think it's kind of hard right now for people while they see it under construction to envision what the completed project is going to look like. And of course, we're going to follow up with the North Garden part of that next fiscal year too, which could also have an impact. So, it's a work in process, in progress, and I think the results will be very good, but it's definitely hard to see it yet. So,
Perfect. Thank you. I really appreciate just the breakdown as well. The Christmas setup. Give a shout out to they had the big Christmas tree there, right? I wish they were showing a picture of it when it blew over, and then y'all picked it up like 30 minutes later. How quick that was. That'd have been a good segue picture there, I think. Just another testimony to how quickly our parks people are on it when it comes to things like that, right? And the housing availability. I was looking at the chart, but I didn't see where it says if you talk to any realtor today, they'll tell you there's 24 houses in Sierra Vista available. Only that's it. The market right now, there's 24. Right? I didn't really see that number in there, like where that equated. I just was trying to read that, if that's how that matched, where that matched up. But
the table will show you more than just Sierra Vista. That's the area. So the numbers in here is the Sierra Vista area, not just in town. So there may only be 24 in town.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and those are probably single family. I talked to Virginia Clevin yesterday at the Rotary Club meeting, just kind of asked her how the market was, and she mentioned there were 46 total properties, on the market. Some of those, obviously may not be just single-family dwellings. So, but it's a small number either way you cut it. So, yes, it is a tight market, and where I think the private sector is having a little trouble with labor and materials to try to get the new housing up, in a timely way, and that kind of constrains the housing and restricts supply. And of course, when that happens, you see prices going up, and that is what's happening in town right now.
Definitely.
So there's no rentals either.
Yeah, the rental market is very, very tight. So.
Those are the only comments I had. I appreciate it. Thank you. Good, right.
Councilman Johnson.
Yes, thank you. Talking about the traffic along the construction zone there, I saw on social media that there was a person complaining that they were trying to turn from North Street or North Avenue left to go eastbound on Fry, and they sat there for quite a long time. And I had a friend that stopped by for a beer, and he gave me the same complaint. He said he waited about 7 minutes to try to get there. So I drove that area yesterday, and I looked at what was going on. Well, first of all, and I think the major thing is that traffic signal at Carmichael is not activated yet. So we're having people drive through that stop sign with basically a California stop, where they kind of like slow down and then keep going. So there's no break in traffic. So once I discovered that and shared that knowledge with him, it was a good explanation. He goes, oh, okay, I understand now. So, but it's something we should consider, and maybe even lower the speed limit.
I've experienced that too. They're supposed to come to a full stop and at that interchange, and then go on. And if they do that properly, you can basically squirt out north and go on there safely and make a left-hand turn. Because I've done that a couple times over the last several weeks.
I think unfortunately construction stop signs get half the respect of a real stop sign.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, any construction zone, you just got to be careful. That's the key.
Yeah. But I just wanted to make that observation that, I saw it on social media, and then I was contacted directly by an individual, and I went and looked at it and said, oh, this will solve the issue once that traffic signal is activated.
You're right.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on the council executive report?
No.
Okay. report on recent trips, meetings, future meetings. On Friday, I went to the League of Cities and Towns, and of course, they talked about the first blush of legislation. There's only one that is really alarming. This was a Republican, I'm assuming right-wing, and a Democrat, I'm assuming left-wing, had gotten together and they wanted to solve the affordable housing problem in Arizona. And what they did is they looked at a piece of legislation that had been talked about in California. And basically, they proposed a similar thing, but this is a piece of legislation that basically says if you're a property owner, you can do anything you want with your property, to include putting 12 apartments on it or whatever. And they want to change the planning laws that the cities can use, so that if somebody wanted to put 12 apartments on what is now a single-family lot, they could do that, and they would not require a public hearing. They wouldn't be required to notify the neighbors. They wouldn't be required to go to P&Z, and they would go. The only place they would go was the city council, and it was doubtful the way it was written whether or not the city council could tell them no. So that's obviously a bad bill.
Yes.
And the League of Cities is working on getting that killed. And obviously, we do need to address, as we discussed, we do need to address for affordable housing. But the two folks in Tucson, the legislators, didn't meet the mark at all on that. So other than that, I don't have much to report, other than because our population went up slightly and everybody else's went down slightly, our dues will grow a little bit. Not much, but other than that, it was a good meeting. And of course, the league is going to fight against that and a couple other ones that are kind of stinkers that will affect us negatively. Anybody else take any trips, meetings, or future meetings? Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Parks and Rec met on the 1st, and of course, the staff liaison is the Director of Funds, excuse me. So we get a lot of good information, but I want to pass on some things to y'all. The commission is going to take on the public input for Roadrunner. So tentatively, March 19th, we're going to have our first meeting at Roadrunner Park, trying to get the word out to the whole community, especially around the Canyon of the Flores
Is it
area.
Roadrunner Park, or is it? It's the name of the park is
Roadrunner.
No, it's Roadrunner.
Is it Roadrunner or Three Canyons?
Roadrunner.
Roadrunner at Canyon de Flores.
At Canyon of
Okay,
Flores.
all right.
You got me thinking I'm wrong.
We had a
There's so
discussion. I
many of
didn't
them.
remember which one we decided to call, because part of it was
Depending
called
thinking.
something, part of it was called something else.
Yes.
I heard
we talked
that.
about that.
Yeah.
The lower area is called something else.
The Garden Canyon.
Garden Canyon
Yeah,
Wash,
I thought it
Linear
was
Park.
Garden,
Yeah.
all be Garden Canyon Park rather than Roadrunner Park.
Names up for.
I guess we gotta figure it out. Okay.
It's Benning Park, but Mr. Mayor, we'll go with your with
Well,
Yeah.
Mueller Park first.
Either one is fine with me, but.
You all
these
can call it what you
people-
want.
Got two parks right there.
I don't care what they call it either.
Call me
but
late for dinner.
Tentatively, March 19th, we're gonna have our first public input at the park. I have hopefully here soon by next March, the beginning of March, we'll have our next park cleanup. Y'all are more than welcome to join us. The commission is also going to be looking at current policies regarding parks, regarding ball fields, football fields, baseball fields, etc., softball fields, to look and see if we have a difference in language, and if not, hopefully write the differences in the language to specify what's a dog park, what's a ballpark versus what's a community park. So hopefully a couple more meetings, we'll have that to everybody.
Well, hopefully they'll be able to say a community park can have a dog park in it.
Oh, yes, sir.
It's a feature, not like,
No, I agree.
like a splash pad is a feature, but it's not a splash pad park.
Mostly between ballparks and a park.
Okay.
We're still waiting on the rock removal at Soldier Creek. I'll invite all y'all when we pick a day. And then just some good information. I won't bore y'all with everything, but toward the zona, we're at 580 plus
Reservation?
yes, ma'am. 500 was our break-even point, or their break-even point. So we're doing great. 315 plus hotel reservations already. countless numbers of RVs in tents will fill the park and park area, so it's looking like it's gonna be a great event. I'll get more information on it and put that on Thursday for y'all. But that was the brunt of the meeting, and that's it.
Okay, any meetings, then we'll go on to item E, which is future discussion items, council request. Assistant City Manager, what have you got on the schedule coming up for work sessions, et cetera?
Mr. Mayor, your next work session on February 26th, we have the mid-year budget review scheduled, which is really the first of your budget work sessions. But we'll send out the actual budget calendar to you here by email shortly. And then the following work session, we'll have your 6-month strategic plan update report, and we'll be scheduling a legislative update for you here soon too. We just want all of the bills to be dropped first to give you an update on what's out there.
Yeah, I guess the Senate closed last week and the House closes this week on dropping bills at the legislature.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to see if we can have a future discussion or look at our tax levy with paying off our debts early, with online sales tax now come to us. I'd like to see where our current sales tax is in relation to what our budget could be, what we need in the future, and have that.
That will be part of the budget discussion.
Budget discussion, okay.
Okay, and now is a good time, once we know what our requirements are gonna be for next year, to sit down and decide whether or not we need to adjust rates or not.
Right.
Okay. And, that's something we should look at every year, as far as
Yes,
I'm
sir.
concerned.
I agree.
So, that should be part of the budget process, am I right there, Mr. Patucci?
Yeah, generally we talk about rates when we need money.
That's right.
Now we have more spending
Well,
needs.
But the thing is, I would tell you too, is, and I've said this in the public already, is if you look at those unfunded requirements that we have in the back of the budget book,
Roger.
and you see the millions of dollars, there's some priority stuff at the top that probably should be funded, at least for the next couple of years. If this budget, or the revenue largesse continues in the future, I think that should be a consideration in addition to PSPRS.
Gotcha.
As well as, what was the other one?
Those street maintenance.
Well, street maintenance is a bugaboo that we really need to spend a lot more money on. And that's what I hear a lot about. In fact, I was in one neighborhood the other day, and we'd done part of the streets on one side of it, and the other one is still a piece of. So we need some serious money, and that street probably needs to be rebuilt.
Right.
From the ground up, which is more expensive than just putting the tar on top of it.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I think you're going to be very pleased with the numbers that you're going to see coming in the mid-year budget review here in a couple weeks. And you're also doing that at, I think, the second or third lowest sales tax rate in the state of Arizona, and maybe the first or second lowest combined tax rate in the state of Arizona. So you have every reason to be pleased.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Seeing nothing else, I appreciate everybody's, did you have something, Greg? No. Appreciate everybody's efforts today. A lot of good discussion. And we'll see you on Thursday. Meeting adjourned.